Hey there, and welcome to the Weaver's World. Today I want to tell you about a system that is a bit unorthodox in more ways than one. A lot of RPGs are all about epic adventures, battles, and the war against evil. And while you can tell those stories in Ryuutama as well, this RPG from Japan focuses on another aspect that a lot of other systems either don't acknowledge at all or just skip over very briefly. The journey from A to B, which is an adventure all on its own and sometimes even more important than the destination itself. Ryuutama can be described as Oregon Trail meets Studio Ghibli meets Dragon Quest. The German word Fernweh describes the longing for a place you have never visited, and that, combined with nostalgia and a certain sense of whimsy, is the core of what makes Ryuutama tick. But of course, Ryuutama is not all about wholesome traveling experiences. Monsters, hunger, thirst, and nature itself can turn a journey in Ryuutama into a dangerous trip very quickly. I usually go over the world where a system is set first thing, but this time I'll have to do it a bit differently because Ryuutama does not have a set world. Instead, you and your players will define what your world is about, and this will start before you even play your first round. There is a special kind of character in Ryuutama called the Ryuujin. This NPC is basically the avatar of the game master, and although they will not accompany the characters directly, they will have a high degree of influence on the adventure. Depending on the color of the Ryuujin's scales, the adventure will prioritize different aspects of the gameplay. The green-scaled Midori Ryu will set a nostalgic and calm tone, focusing on the journey aspect of the game. The blue-scaled Ao Ryu will emphasize a playstyle that mostly deals with the characters' ties to one another. The crimson-scaled Kurenai Ryu cause the adventure to be rather combat-heavy. And finally, the black-scaled Kuro Ryu are meant for a darker and more complex scenario. So by choosing the color of your Ryuujin scales, you are already giving the players a hint as to what to expect during their adventure. You are of course free to design your own world as you see fit, but it is highly encouraged by the system to do so in tandem with your players. From the shape of your world to its history and the dangers it is currently facing, you can pretty much define anything and everything to your liking. The basic scenario places Ryuutama in an idealized version of a world between the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, with lots of smaller towns that are interspaced by vast landscapes, fit for epic journeys. But as said before, everything can be adjusted, even while you are playing. Defining your world while you play is something the rules encourage, so your characters can actually explore a world they know next to nothing about. Whether your group just wants to travel to the next town over, save a kingdom, or fight an evil god, Ryuutama has got you covered, and the more you play, the more the world your game is set in will become just the right world for you. This is also in no small part thanks to the aforementioned Ryuujin, who allows the game master to influence the game a lot more directly than most other games do. For the players, Ryuutama isn't that different from most other RPGs in terms of character creation. Their character has certain attributes and qualities which denote their capabilities. On one hand, there are attribute points which can be distributed, on the other hand, each character has a class and a type. A character's type decides what their focus should be. Weapon types are good at fighting, technical types are versatile and crafty, and magic types can use spells. The class a character chooses influences what other skills they have. These classes range from healers to merchants and even nobles. Ryuujin do not have these attributes. Instead, they gain certain spells and items which will influence the player character's adventure. Ryuujin skills are mostly meant to help the player characters overcome obstacles or ease their journey. The Ryuujin's items, on the other hand, have the potential to change the rules or the story the characters are experiencing. So a Ryuujin with a torch, for instance, can double the experience points the group gets at the end of the session, while a Ryuujin wearing a spear causes all the characters to be part of an army sent out to fulfill a mission. The characters will most likely never meet the Ryuujin directly though, at least not in the traditional sense. Ryuutama wants the GM to use the Ryuujin sparingly, and while they may help the group directly when they are using a very powerful spell, they also have a meek, unassuming form like a cat or a butterfly, which they will mostly use to interact with the group. After all, it is their adventure, and the Ryuujin is mostly a mere observer who occasionally lends a helping hand. This of course is meant to help the GM with guiding the players while helping them understand their own role as a game master. Also, the Ryuujin and player characters grow together. While the characters grow stronger and more versatile with each level, the Ryuujin learns new spells and can use them more often. So not only will the player characters get stronger over time, the game master and the world will evolve with them to adjust to their growing experience and bonding as a group. As said before, Ryuutama focuses a lot on the journey itself as part of the adventure. So of course there are special rules regarding travel, something a lot of other systems just briefly skip over. The characters can check to see how well they are feeling on this day, plan their route for the day, or of course take care to procure food, water and a place to rest securely. While there are rules on how to check for these things, the GM is highly encouraged to describe these in detail and let the character talk about them. Looking for food isn't just rolling a few dice, it is a small adventure on its own, influenced by the environment and general situation the characters are currently in. This simple trick makes Ryuutama's world a highly engaging one that feels very much alive. Additionally, there are optional roles the player can fulfill. They might take on the role as mapper to document the roads the group has already traveled, manage supplies as a quartermaster, or take on the role as the group's chronicler to write down their adventures and tell them to others. And so, accompanied by their Ryuujin, the group can explore a world that is often dangerous, but always up to be explored. Ryuutama has a lot of heart and warmth, not only in its premise, but the way it can, and mostly is, played. So, that's Ryuutama. Not a well-known system, but one I hold very dear. Every time I introduced new players to it, it got accepted very quickly and has become a favorite of many. So I hope you give it a try when you find the chance and maybe fall in love with it as I did. If you have any more questions about Ryuutama or suggestions on what I should cover next, leave them in the comments. I will also link to the official site where the rules are explained a bit more. See you soon!